Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Wild and Live. I hope you're all doing well. Sorry about the slight delay. Again, lots of Wi-Fi and internet issues, as I'm sure you can appreciate, and it's probably happening to all of you at home because everybody's at home using the Wi-Fi. But not to worry, because we've had a great week so far. On Monday, we were talking to Roxy Furman. She is a conservationist and wildlife filmmaker. We were talking about painted wolves. That was great. We also got the chance to speak to Billy Heaney. Billy Heaney, a wildlife presenter, about his travels around Australia, his marsupial marathon, which was awesome. So again, if you want to see those clips, make sure you head over to the video list once we're done with this episode. Today, I'm really excited because we've got a guest all the way from Canada, no less, who's going to be talking to us about one of my favorite animals. Connel Bradwell, are you wild and live?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. All
nice
the
one.
way from Canada.
All the way from Canada. You've actually got up really early in order because of the time difference. So we definitely appreciate it. You're looking nice and much more sprightly than I would be looking at that time of the day. That's for sure.
It's 7 o'clock. It's fine. I'm used to being up early. It's not that bad. It's
So
not like it's 3 in the morning or anything.
no, it's
We're good.
not. No. So Connor, let's get into it. We're going to be talking about
Yes.
one of my favorite animals, killer whales, aka orcas. So here's your first question, Connell. Have you
Mhm.
ever been in the water with wild orcas before?
No, I have never been in the water with wild orcas
What?
before. I know. But here in Canada, we're not really allowed to do that. The
Uh-huh.
rules are put in place that you're not really allowed to get in the water with them.
Mm,
So I have been on a boat next to them in the water, but
wow.
never actually in the water with them. I think you can do that in places like Norway. That's like the main place to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that. Snorkeling with whales, orcas specifically in Norway is definitely on my hit list. It does sound like a bit of an outlandish idea, and I think most people would be a little bit freaked out by the notion of someone saying, "Get into the water, you're about to snorkel with some killer whales." But you can do it. You just have to make sure you're doing it with the right type of orca.
Yeah, I would definitely have a think about which type of orca that you're you're gonna be swimming with. Although saying that, it doesn't always matter that much because there's been no sort of recorded death by killer whales of people and any kind of attack or them being eaten is they know they're looking for. They have very specific food and you
Connor, we're losing you just a little bit. Let's.
yeah.
I think you're back. I think you're
Is that
back.
better now?
Yeah, I assume you were saying
Okay.
something to do with what they eat, their food, the fact that there are no recorded deaths of humans, human interaction with killer whales in the wild. So let's hope the internet sticks with us here. Look, I'm really excited about today's show because I absolutely love orcas. They're one of the coolest animals on the planet in my eyes. And I think you're one of the most ideal people to talk about them because you have spent a long time, or at least a significant amount of time, researching them. Um, for everybody at home, if you're wondering what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be covering whale culture. Uh, the fact that some researchers use dogs to sniff out whether whales are pregnant or not. That sounds amazing. The fact that some people need hazmat suits, those protective gear suits, to when it comes to when people come into contact with orcas, as well as drones that are being used to collect whale snot. So all that's to come. And Connor, you're going to take us through that. Remember, everybody, if you do have any questions for either myself or Connell when it comes to orcas, please pop your questions into the text box and we'll do our best to answer them. So let's start with a great fact about killer whales, Connell. Apparently, they're not even whales. They are part of another family. What's that all about?
Yeah, so that's actually really interesting because people do think that they're called killer whales. I can understand why it's confusing, but yeah, they are not whales. They are dolphins. They're a member of the Delphinidae family, and they're the largest dolphins in the world. The original name killer whale came from Spanish explorers who saw them killing whales, so they kind of called it. after the fact that they were killing whales, and the translation got a bit lost. So they're called killer whales because of that, but not because they are whales. They're an apex predator, as I'm sure a lot of people know. They are incredibly intelligent, top of the food chain. They don't have to worry about being eaten by anything or anyone. They are taking prey much bigger than themselves. They work together to take down some of our largest species, and they're incredibly complex as well. We're going to talk about culture a little bit later. But if you've never seen one, males are about 6 to 8 meters. Females are about 5 to 7 meters or so. And the dorsal fin, so the big fin on the back of the males, can be about 6 foot, which is about the same size as me now. And you can't see me standing up, but think of like a person.
I'm wondering, Connell, because many people would be familiar with orcas through Free Willy, amazing film, just hits me right in the feels.
There's so many times where I've been on a boat like, are you gonna do it? You're gonna have that moment.
And so their dorsal fins don't tend to droop over. They're meant to be upright. Is that correct?
Yeah, mostly in the wild, their dorsal fins don't droop over. I can't say that it's impossible or that it doesn't happen in the wild, because it has been seen, but it's rare. It's mostly in the wild. Their dorsals are straight upright, and the males have much bigger dorsal fins than the females, which is how you can tell that difference in size even when you're not seeing the whole of the animal.
When we think about orcas, for me they're really cool. They also seem to, in some ways, defy the laws of biology, and I guess what I'm getting at there is they are marine mammals. Because they're mammals, they breathe air like we do, but they have the ability to dive to great depths and hold their breath for well, I don't even know how long. How long do they hold their breaths for, and how?
Biggest advantage when it comes to hunting is their intelligence. I mean, they are, as we've said, perfectly adapted to hunting things in the ocean, including their markings as well, which is where I think that people can really tell it's an orca. So their marking is all about camouflage, counter shading. So they're black on the top, white underneath. So if you're in the ocean, you look down, you're looking down into the darkness. And if an orca's below you, you see a dark top of an orca against a dark background. If you're looking up, you see a white bottom of the orca against the sky and the sunlight. So they have a number of adaptations, but their intelligence is the key thing. Their ingenuity, their ability to problem solve. And we can see that because there are so many varieties of hunting strategies within the population. So the famous examples are in Argentina, coming onto the beach and grabbing the seals, or in the Antarctic, flipping them off flipping penguins and seals off the ice floats. So their intelligence is a key part of that, and their ability to work together and communicate as well, which is why they're able to take grey whales down and larger whales, which they do off the coast of BC here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just getting super excited just hearing you talk about them, and it's interesting when we think about the name killer whales, because that they are a species that are known to kill whales, which they can. I've even seen reports that killer whales have been able to take down great white sharks. Yeah,
this is the shark eating aspect of it blows my mind.
Yeah,
but yes, I have definitely seen that they've been able to take down great white sharks. Here in BC, we have a different group, an Ecotype called the offshores, and offshores. We don't know very much about them. They live like right out in the Pacific, and we know that they feed on sharks. And the only reason we really know that is because when those animals have washed up, one has died and they've happened to find them, their teeth are all what's the word, damaged. They're really damaged teeth, because shark skin is kind of like sandpaper. So it just erodes their teeth from eating them. So we believe that they are definitely eating sharks, and great white sharks, again, if they work as a team, they could definitely take down animals like great white sharks.
So
they're incredible.
You're able to tell what they're eating just by looking at the markings and erosion on their teeth.
There is nothing out in the Pacific that could do that much damage to their teeth other than sharks and them eating shark skins. And the fact that it's significant damage shows that they are eating it regularly. They're not just snacking on a shark here or there. they are consistently feeding on sharks.
Wow, super cool animals.
But like I said, we don't know very much about them, so that's the only way we know about that.
You do know a lot about a specific population of orcas. You've spent a good deal of time researching them, the southern resident population. What is it about this group that is so interesting to you?
Yeah, so we have within the orcas, I mentioned just briefly, Ecotype. So we have different types of orcas. They're not subspecies, they're all in the same species, but ecotypes, each of them have unique characteristics. So we have the residents, the transients, and the offshores here. The residents are fish-eating, transients eat marine mammals, and offshores eat sharks, potentially. The southern resident orcas are the population that you find around southern Vancouver Island. They are a unique species. They interbreed within their population. There's only 72, 73 of them, and they're only found in this part of southern Vancouver Island, Washington State, up to Vancouver. The reason that I am so interested in them, they're one of the most studied orcas in the world, yet we're still learning new things about them. They are dealing with a whole load of interesting kind of complex issues, and their whole biology, their structure, their social structure, they're within 3 different pods. They each have different languages, and they only eat one type of fish, Chinook salmon, which is, pretty fussy, I think. But
yeah,
they
really fussy eaters. Let's just go back a little bit, because I've got a little map here which shows Vancouver Island to the northeast, and then you've got the bay. So are these resident populations? Is that where they're going in between Vancouver Island and then the rest of the of Canada and the States?
Yeah, so they're mostly you'll mostly find them between sort of Vancouver, Seattle, so down the Puget Sound, and Victoria, southern Vancouver Island, and out into the Pacific. That's mostly their summer range, so they'll be there pretty consistently throughout the summer. And then during the winter, they do go off and they travel a little bit further. So they can be, sometimes they'll pop up down in California, sometimes they'll go a little bit further north towards northern BC. But generally, that southern Vancouver Island, Washington State, that's their critical habitat. That's where we focus the research, and a lot of their conservation efforts is focused in that area.
If we take our minds back to what you're saying about the fact that the southern resident population of orcas only eat fish, specifically salmon, even more specifically Chinook salmon. It highlights the fact that they must be really sensitive to overfishing, because they're eating that one specific type of fish. That's just one of the 3 main factors that affect them. The others are pollution from toxins in the water and disturbance from big boats. So what can we do to help prevent this from happening, and reduce our impact on orcas?
Yeah, so those, as you said, it's a really multifaceted kind of issue. Their conservation is tricky, because, like you said, you're dealing with 3 different things, and 3 quite different. You need specific recovery plans for salmon and for toxins, and then also for sound pollution. And as I mentioned, the Vancouver, Seattle, Victoria kind of triangle, I guess, is really, that's their critical habitat. But that means that we have a lot of industry, so there's a lot of toxins getting into the water. We also have a lot of shipping that comes in, and that's where the noise mostly comes from. Overfishing is a big issue. Another massive thing is that salmon, just to add one more in, it's like the list just builds and builds with them. Salmon are a species that rely on terrestrial environments. They spend their life out in the ocean, but they breed upstream in different on the rivers. So we have to make sure that we protect our habitat around salmon spawning. So that can be way inland in some cases. So what happens in sort of central BC impacts the coast as well. There's that kind of connection between salmon are a real good connection between the marine and the terrestrial ecosystems. Some of the things that we can do here in BC, the big sort of campaigns is about sustainable fisheries, and either reducing the amount of Chinook salmon that you eat, or looking and making sure that they come from sustainable backgrounds. So that's something that you can do in the UK as well. I mean, this is not an issue that only happens here in BC. You know, it might not be with southern residents, but there's still a lot of marine life over there. And yeah, like I said, so looking at being responsible with fishing and where you're getting your food from, and things like fish farms as well, are really not great for wild salmon populations. So just thinking about where your food is, if you want to cut it out, you can. I'm not going to tell you to not eat fish, you know, or salmon.
I know.
But
I
cutting
can't lie,
down,
I absolutely love my smoked salmon.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah. So I'm not going to, you know, that's not a problem. But just thinking about where that comes from and being responsible with it and making sure that you're getting it from a sustainable resource or sustainable sources is a really great thing. If you happen to be living in Canada or even in the US, you can also talk to your MP or your MLA or your representative in the US as well, and just let them know that this is an important issue for you. I think that's always a big one. People forget that you can just, you know, you can just go and chat to them.
Right,
they're
MP,
receptive
yeah,
to it.
Yeah. I'm interested in what happens. You know, you were talking about the fact that what happens in central BC, central British Columbia, in Canada affects, you know, that water all flows into the Puget Sound, that body of water between Vancouver Island and the mainland, and I suppose I suppose what I'm trying to get at. Let me just bring up this picture so everybody can see where I'm going with this. This is what happens when a whale gets washed up onto the beach. You have these specialists that come and try and remove the whale, but they have to wear these protective suits. These are just simple plain white ones. But you're explaining to me, Connel, that sometimes they have to wear these like full-on hazmat suits, hazardous materials suits. So can you go a bit further as to why they need to wear those suits?
Yeah. So when these whales are some of the most toxic animals on the planet. Being an apex predator, they are impacted by bioaccumulation, which happens going up the food chain. So the toxins get into the ecosystem, they get into the food chain, and they build at each different stage. So that when an apex predator, the top predator, usually gets the highest dosage of that. So we're talking things like DDTs, PCBs, for example, and a lot of that is coming from the industry. Like I said, Vancouver, Seattle, Victoria, major ports within North America, not just within our respective countries. And so as that builds up, the whales are obviously, it gets into their system and they retain a lot of these toxins, and it has a massive impact on their health, on their fertility. And it means that when they wash up, they're a biohazard. It is not safe.
Absolutely mad that a whale is classified as a biohazard, and that all comes down to largely to a lot of human activity.
Yeah, it's all down to human activity. Exactly. These kind of toxins wouldn't, you know, exist without human activity. This is an unnatural source that's going into the environment. So and there's a whole load about, you know, the whale's morphology, their physiology, the blubber, you know, they retain a lot of these toxins, which is why, as you said, when they wash up, people need to be, they're not just wearing those suits and things because it's a dead animal. They're doing it because they are toxic. You have to be really, really careful when you're around them and doing your necropsies on them.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that impact that we as humans have on orcas is sound disturbance, which you wouldn't really think of as being a major factor. But you've sent us some cool audio clips. So let me just play the sound of orcas when you can hear them. You stick these hydrophones into the water and listen out for these amazing sounds. Let's have a little listen right now. So you should be able to hear those sounds playing. Awesome calls there. But Connel, when that's what you're meant to hear, But when you often hear this sound. I'll play another one. Here we go. Do not adjust your screens or your speakers. That is the sound of just boats drowning out the sound of orcas that we could hear just before. So it really goes to show how our impact just from having boats going up and down the Puget Sound in the water can completely drown out the sounds of the orcas. So how does that affect them if they're unable to communicate with each other? Does that affect the way that they act, the way they move, the way that they hunt?
Yeah. So that clip as well is just one tanker. It's the big tankers that go through the straits, and when that goes through, as you heard, it pretty much drowns them out completely. It impacts them in a number of ways. We know that they are already having issues with a lack of food and with toxins. And we think that the sound is not helping. It stresses them out. And we've seen evidence of that. We are able to look at things like stress hormones as well in their poo, which we'll talk about a bit later. But they believe that things like sound doesn't help with that. Sound is crucial to them. These orcas in particular are very, very vocal. The transients, which are the marine mammal eating ones, are almost silent because the marine mammals that they feed on have good hearing. The salmon, it's not that great. So these guys can chat, they can talk, they have to be quiet. So sound is just so important as part of their communication. And also they use echolocation in order to catch their prey. So they're using sound to catch their prey and to navigate. Echolocation is when they send out that sound, kind of like bats. They send out a sound. It hits off an object based on that. And they use their lower jaw, their ears are inner. So it hits their lower jaw, goes up their jawline and into their inner ears. And that's how they can pick it up.
That's we lost you just a little bit there. I think we heard most of what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that they use this ability, their echolocation ability to send out high frequency sounds, which bounce off different objects. And so then they can tell by, like you said, conducting that sound through their jaw, how close an object might be like fish. But I never really thought about the fact that the transient population, which eat animals like seals, don't vocalize as much as the residents. That's really interesting.
Yeah, they are. I shouldn't describe any orcas as creepy or eerie, but eerie is a better word. They are very. So you'll put a hydrophone down around residents, and you'll hear them talking, communicating, and whatnot. You put it down in transients, it's almost silent. Ooh. So yeah, and that's obviously, like I said, to do with their prey. So the salmon, they can't hear as well, but the marine mammals can hear. So if you're, it's like watching wildlife or trying to see anything, take a photo. If you're loud and noisy, you're not going to see very much. If you're quiet, that's when you'll obviously see more. So, yeah.
Very clever. I'd like to move on to whale festivals.
Yes.
Now, this might sound really weird, but we were talking earlier, and you were giving me a little insight as to, the fact that whales have culture, the way that they vocalize and interact with each other. And yeah, so tell us about whale festivals. That's what I call it. You didn't call it that. So any biologists that are watching, Connel did not say that whales have festivals. That was me.
But I did say they party. So I don't know which is better or worse.
So yeah, tell us about these parties or festivals.
Sorry, you cut out.
Tell us about these whale festivals or these whale parties. Or our internet is playing up.
Yeah, so
there we go. You're back.
Oh, there we go. Yes. Okay, so I didn't say very much, so it's all good. Yeah, so culture is a really interesting part of orca biology and orca conservation, orca research. Some of the signs of culture are sort of language, which we talked about. They communicate. Food, which they have very specific food that they require. Their mothers, they're matriarchal, so they rely on their mums their whole lives. And then traditions, and traditions come in all sort of shapes and sizes. And one of the traditions is these festivals, these parties that the southern residents have. So I mentioned that they had 3 pods, J, K, and L. They're often off doing their own thing, but they will come together once a month or so and just go mad. They absolutely, we don't really know how they communicate. They can be in different parts of the strait, and yet we don't know whether, you know, like they put it in their calendar or if it's a set day. Do you know what I mean? We have no idea. So they all come together, all 72 of them, to just have an absolute, it seems like they're having a blast. They play, they sometimes they mate, they communicate, they party. It's like I said, I think a festival is a great way of summing it up. That's what it's like. And it's madness. When you're watching it, there's just so much going on because they're constantly talking and moving and jumping and communicating. So I think I know that festival isn't the scientific term, but I think it should be.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds incredible. I'd love to see something like that, you know, seeing a whole megapod of whales, 70-odd whales interacting, breaching, and all that flurry of activity must be incredible to see firsthand. Now, I'd like to finish off on 2 super cool techniques, research techniques, that researchers or biologists use to find out more about these whales. You know, you're studying them to find out more why they party so much, you know, every month. And the first technique that I want to talk about is the fact that researchers collect whale snot. So how are they doing this, and what does it tell us about the whales, looking at their boogers?
Yeah, so this was glamorous. Now it can be quite. They have basically they used to have a stick. Used to have a stick with a petri dish. Did I just cut out? I didn't say very much. No, I just was saying that it used to be pretty basic. It used to be like a broom with a petri dish on it, and they just put it over the whales as they came up to breathe, and they catch as much as they can. Now they use drones. So basically, you're flying a drone over a pod of orcas. You're waiting for them to surface. You can sort of see it. You zip that drone, fly it straight through. It's still got the petri dish attached. Fly straight through, and you just collect little bits of snot samples from them. You don't need very much, and a lot of the time they get just water because they don't usually when they come up to the surface, you usually see that white. It looks kind of like white smoke. It's not often actually things that come out of them, their nose or their blowhole. It's usually just the water that's been sitting on the top of their heads, I guess. But you only need a little bit, and it can tell us so much. It's amazing how much you can tell from snot. So you can look at things like their genetics, you can look at their health, you can look at toxins, you can search for diseases, you can generally get a good idea of what their health is like. And when you're dealing with a population that's only 72, it's really important to know what their health, to know what's going on with their health. And snot is a really great insight into that. I know it just sounds mad, but it really is. It really is.
I'm just going to bring up that picture again of Snotbot, which
yes,
that is a brilliant shot. You can see that drone. That's actually a drone that's flying over a blue whale, I think, or a sperm whale. But again, the principle is the same as what Connel was explaining to us. And then finally, using dogs to find out if orcas are pregnant. How does that work?
Yeah,
dogs, orcas.
Oh, this is one of my favorites.
Land. How does it work, Connel?
Yeah. This is I love this. So, conservation canines, they're called. They're based in Washington State, and they have trained some very clever dogs to sniff out orca poo. So, this dog can sniff orca poo, and you see it out on the boats. It's going mad, and you think, oh yeah, he's got some poo. So he points in the right direction. He lets them know where it is. The team go. They've got a net, kind of like just in a swimming pool or something. They just go through, they collect the orca poo, and they take that sample of it, and that can tell us so much about the orcas.
Just for everybody at home, that's a comparison between residents and transients, and you can see there it shows the residents as fish eating, and transients tend to eat small mammals like seals. And again, as Connell was saying, more vocal in the residents and not as vocal in the transients. So yeah, really interesting there. Connell, what is it for you that you find? What is it about orcas, sorry, that you find so intriguing? Why are they so special to you?
There's nothing like them. To me, I find that seeing orcas is an unbelievable experience. So it never gets old. I have seen them a lot, and every single time I am still going, oh, are they over there? Where are they? You still just, they are so incredible to see. And the more that you kind of get to know about them, I think that there are species that we can look at and think that they are these kind of evil, and they're this and they're that, and they're very cunning and predators, and sometimes they're that's what people think about them. But actually, when you get to know them, they are incredibly, as we've said, complex and intelligent and emotionally intelligent. They're very caring and nurturing, and I find that is just so nice to sort of to see when you spend time around them, to watch something that is to watch animals that have been together for 40 years interacting with each other, to see species that have known, like I said, pods that have known each other, 60 years, to see grandmothers raising grandchildren. Like, that's how their society works. And I find that just fascinating. And as I said, because they're so complex, we're learning so much about them. This orca population that we have that I'm studying is one of the most studied in the world since the 70s. It's been pretty much continuous, and their populations are decreasing, and it's a really bad situation for them at the minute. But we are always learning, and also they're very easy to get people excited about. That's the other thing. I think that talking about them and kind of pushing for their conservation and protection is I wouldn't say easy, because there's a lot of things that take it, but that it will take to get their population increasing. But they're important to people, and I think that people really recognize that they're an amazing species. And we've seen a real shift, especially here in BC. They used to be hunted. I mean, they used to be captured. Fishermen would kill them because they would be stealing their fish, and that wasn't that long ago. Yet now that has completely shifted, and the mindset is about people wanting to go and watch them and see them and protect them. And so that gives me a bit of hope that we can change, that people can change their mindset in not a small in a short amount of time. Yeah. So that's why I guess I could go on and on and on.
Yeah, I know, and I could listen for ages, so I'm sure everybody at home as well. Before we let you go, you've been hosting an online show for CBC called Hello Spring. Can you tell us what that's about, what animals you've seen this spring over in Canada, and what we can expect you talking about?
Yeah, Hello Spring is essentially the Canadian Spring Watch. And so we have been getting a load of live cameras. We've had osprey nests, peregrine falcon nests. And on the Hello Spring episodes, we have been talking about, the classics, that we've had bear cubs, we've had porcupines, we've had beavers, we've had, a variety of different species. And spring in Canada is so fascinating because it's so big. So in certain parts of the country, you'll be having snow still. And the way that the country has kind of progressed into spring is just endlessly fascinating. And you can see it at cbc.ca/Hello Spring. It's not geoblocked, so you can watch it in the UK as well, if you want to see what spring is like in Canada and in different parts of Canada as well.
I've already taken a look at some of the clips, and they look amazing. So much incredible wildlife out there. Connell, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you about orcas. Good luck with Hello Spring. I'm going to put a little link in the description once we're all done, so you can check that out, see Connell in his element. But yeah, from me and everybody at home, Connell, thank you so much for joining us on WildAndLIVE. It's been brilliant.
No, thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I could just talk about orcas for
Yeah, no, so good. I'll give you a call in 5 minutes, and we'll chat more about some
This
orcas.
has been
Brilliant. Well, look,
well worth getting up. Yeah, no kidding.
good stuff. Connell,
We just keep going.
I think the Wi-Fi is telling us to get off the line, but thank you so much once again, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Brilliant. That was Connel Bradwell. He's an education officer. Actually, I think I've got that incorrect. I need to double check. He's a presenter. Great to have a chat about orcas there. I think we are all done for today. Join us tomorrow. We're going to be talking to Sophie Darlington, a wildlife camerawoman. We're going to be talking about her experiences filming wildlife out in some amazing locations, and talking about one of the new series that she is filming, which is called Queens, which will be coming out in 2023. That's how long it takes to make these shows. But thanks everybody for tuning in. And I will see you again tomorrow to chat to Sophie Darlington. I hope you all have a great day. I will see you next time.